The college football calendar is completely screwed up. So much so that the Indiana Hoosiers, as they prepare to make a run at a national championship, already have to start worrying about the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day and the number one sports podcasting network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Well, thank you so much for being here. Happy Monday. Appreciate you making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics, and tons to get to on today's show. Can the problems with Indiana basketball be fixed? We saw the disaster on Saturday night inside of Rupp Arena against the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll talk about that, plus some huge news that we are definitely behind on but haven't had a chance to speak on. The idea that Bryant Haines has been extended as Indiana's defensive coordinator. I'll tell you why that was a no-brainer move. But I want to start today's show with the crazy idea that Indiana football and Curt Cignetti and the number one team in the country, the number one seed in the college football playoff, and one of the betting favorites to win the national title, they have to already start thinking about the transfer portal. And that sounds crazy, I know, in preparation for the 2026 team and the 2026 season. But this is where the college football calendar is just completely screwed up, right? We understand and we know that there are no longer two separate portal windows, right? You had the winter window and you had the spring window after spring practice, where it was a couple of weeks of just pure chaos. That doesn't exist anymore. You've got one window, 2 weeks in January, and it opens up on January 2nd of the coming year. And then it's just a free-for-all for a couple of weeks. And while that is okay, I guess, that is better than the two windows. I'll give you that. The problem is, for good teams like Indiana or Ohio State or any of the teams in the college football playoffs, you're totally screwed. You have to prepare to win games and try to make on your quest to win a national title, but you also have to figure out, okay, what's our roster going to look like next year? Right. And that's totally broken. And there are some people who say, well, you're in the college football playoff. You don't need the portal as much as these other teams. And it's like, okay, I don't know. It's kind of a loser's mentality, in my opinion. It's like, okay, just because we're good means we should be punished for next year. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so think about what Indiana, just in particular, we're going to talk about some of the positions that the Hoosiers are going to have to go after. But think about the position we're in right now. Thankfully, you've got a couple of weeks off to start preparing yourself for the playoff in either Alabama or Oklahoma. But you do have this time off to start to kind of figure this out. It's just one big jigsaw puzzle is all it is. And so Indiana has to figure out, okay, who do we think is going to be on this roster next year? What are we bringing in for our high school class? And what can we go and get in the transfer portal? And the good news is, right, the good news is all of these players who are announcing it, I'm sure you've seen it all over social media the last couple of weeks. If you notice the language they're using, it says so-and-so wide receiver from, Miami or whatever, wherever, right? Wherever, Missouri, whatever. So-and-so receiver from Missouri plans to enter the transfer portal. Again, it's because it's not open yet, and it's not open until January 2nd. But the good news is, right, there's no tampering. There's no conversations happening. Everybody's playing it by the book. Nobody's breaking the rules. That player's not talking to teams. Those teams aren't talking to that player. Good news is it's all totally clean, totally legal, and everybody's doing it by the book, right? Come on, give me a break. It's ridiculous. And the idea that we just brush over it, we just look past it like it's like everything's okay. I blame the NCAA for that. But for Indiana's sake, you do have these couple of weeks to figure out, okay, where do we have to go in the portal and who could we possibly get? You can't, or you're not supposed to reach out to the players who intend to enter the transfer portal. but you can start making lists. You can start writing down some names. And if you do want to do it by the book, January 2nd, when their paperwork goes through and they're officially in the portal, boom, you start making calls and you start to figure that thing out. And Indiana's already done that. I'm telling you, Indiana's already making moves on both sides of the football because you're going to have to reload in the portal. And there's a lot of positions that Indiana is going to have to go get, right? You're losing so many good players off of this team that hopefully is a national championship winning team, right? I look at the secondary. You're losing several guys in the cornerback room. You're losing a couple of guys in the safety room. You're losing Aiden Fisher at the linebacker spot. You're losing your three most productive guys up front on the defensive line. Then you look on the offensive side. You still need to go get offensive linemen at any time, any chance you can get, whether it's high school recruiting or the transfer portal. You can never have too many offensive linemen. Okay, you have to go get at least one running back, if not two, because I think Lee Beebe Jr., who I expect to return, right, the UAB transfer who was injured early in the season, he looked solid, right, but he was hurt and he'll be coming off of injury. You're also looking at Kobe Martin, who played extremely well, but he's still young. I expect Indiana to go get at least one running back, if not two. I think you're going to have to get a couple of receivers because you're losing some of your top guys, and you need just more dudes in that room. And don't yell at me when I say this. You might go get yourself a transfer portal quarterback. You might just do it. I want to remind you quickly on what positions you're bringing in through the high school rankings, and then I'll kind of tell you which positions I think are the most important to go and reload in the transfer portal. You're bringing in a defensive lineman, a linebacker, D-line, tight end, corner, tight end, D-line, linebacker, edge, linebacker, safety, offensive lineman, tight end, offensive lineman, D-line, wide receiver, offensive lineman. So I forget you had three of those in there, so that's pretty good. Safety, running back, receiver, D-line, and offensive line. So you actually have four of those guys up front on the offensive line. But again, you can never have too many of those, and you can never turn down offensive linemen if they want to come play here. But I think the positions you're going to need the most help on, just in my opinion, I think I don't know. I think the safety spot is concerning for me because you're losing Lewis Moore and Devin Boykin because of their eligibility. Amari Farrell could come back, but he also could test the NFL draft. So we'll see what happens there. I think safety is a big one. Linebacker seems to be okay, right? You are losing Aiden Fisher, but you bring back Isaiah Jones, you bring back Hardy, so you feel okay at least up front, but you definitely need some more depth there at the linebacker spot. I mentioned the running backs. I think that's one that is crucial. And then I think quarterback is one you should keep an eye on, folks. I know that you've got Fernando in there, you've got Alberto because Fernando is going to be moving on. I understand that Alberto could be really good, and you still have Jacob Bell, who's a freshman this year, but you lose several guys from that room because of eligibility or the NFL draft. I don't think it's a terrible idea to go get somebody for competition's sake or just in an emergency, right? I don't think that's a crazy idea. So bottom line is this. Indiana has to go to the portal, and you're going to have to reload a lot of positions on this team, but you bring in a solid recruiting class. You still bring back a lot of dudes from this year's team, and you have a chance to be competitive in 2026. I just hate the idea that you're having to do both at the same time, prepare to win a national championship and also go and find guys in the transfer portal. But Indiana's already doing work there. And when January 2nd comes around, expect the Hoosiers to be very, very busy. All right, coming up here on this episode of Locked On Hoosiers, we keep it with football for now because I want to talk about Bryant Haines being extended. We have, admittedly delayed in talking about this, but now that it's all official and we can settle in and talk about it, man, this was an absolute no-brainer. We talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction. Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. My grandparents have one. Thinking about getting one for my mom too. She likes pictures. She likes them. She just doesn't admit how much she likes them. But this kind of a gift where she doesn't have to set it up, doesn't have to worry about it, and it just is there for her the moment she opens it up. That's why this is such the perfect gift for somebody like her, and maybe like somebody in your family as well. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com. Promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And if you are looking for more, right? If this is your first listen every single day and you truly make this a part of your daily routine, we have an extra step for you and some more content that you can be a part of for just $5 a month. You already live it every day, so now you can take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club right now, and for Locked On Hoosiers with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. So if you want to go 12 months, you save a couple of dollars, right? So there's two ways you can do it. You can go to the link in the description below with our Everydayer Club and click on that, or just open up your browser and go to lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com. No triple W, okay? Just lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com. You can sign up there for our Everydayer Club, which we are super excited about, and thank you to those who have already done that already, and get the show ad-free and a whole lot more. All right, we continue talking football here on Locked On Hoosiers, and maybe the biggest news of the last couple of weeks, which is crazy to think about, with Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman and Indiana being the #1 seed in the college football playoff, and of course a couple of weeks away from getting back on the field. But something we have not really talked about is Bryant Haines. Indiana's defensive coordinator signs a 3-year new contract to make him stay in Bloomington, and he's one of the top paid assistants in the country. They're going to be paying him almost $3 million a year to be Indiana's defensive coordinator. Folks, that's not normal, okay? That is, man, when I was growing up and starting to get into this business, when a coordinator was making $1 million, that was a big deal. Like, coordinators when I was growing up were making $500,000, $600,000 a year, right? Which obviously is still great money, but now we're talking about guys making 1.5, 2, 2.5, and now Bryant Haines making $3 million a year. That's absurd to think about. And that's a lot of money, man, for a 3-year contract. You're paying him basically $9 million plus all the incentives, right? And Curt Cignetti helped get all of that for his guys, and I love that. But folks, this was a no-brainer. This was a no-brainer to me. Bryant Haines is one of, if not the best defensive coordinator in the country. Plain and simple. There's no arguing that. His defense is the best. He gets so much out of his guys, and nobody's been able to figure it out, right? It's the idea that his defensive line brings pressure in several different ways, and they get home to the quarterback, and they are one of the best teams in stopping the run this season. It's the idea that his linebackers can play all over the field. They can rush the quarterback. They can crash the box and stop the run. They can drop back in coverage. Heck, Aiden Fisher drops back and plays zone defense all the time and breaks up passes. And then it's his secondary that gets turnovers, doesn't get beat deep. Yeah, they've had some miscommunication issues sometimes, but they keep everything in front, and it really is bend, don't break on those big plays. Bryant Haines is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and good for Indiana and Curt Cignetti and Scott Dolson and everybody involved here to get this done. His new contract is 3 years in the range of $3 million a year. He was making about $2 million a year. That was going to go up by like $100,000 a year, I think. So they basically said, hey, here's $1 million bonus. Here's $1 million raise. Please stay here. And this happened for 2 reasons. Okay, this type of thing happens for 2 reasons. One, it happens because Indiana wanted it to happen. Indiana wanted to keep him here. He's a valuable piece to this program, and losing him would have been detrimental. Okay, he's a big reason you're undefeated this season. He's a big reason you're Big Ten champions. He's a big reason, and his staff and his defense are a big reason why you're the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. And statistically, you're the best defense in the country, and you proved that against Ohio State a couple of weeks ago in downtown Indianapolis. So that's reason number 1, was Indiana wanted it to happen, but they don't want him going anywhere. But the second reason it happened is because other people wanted him, and other people were making phone calls. Other teams and other programs said, hey, that guy's kind of good. We could use somebody like that. He's one of the best coordinators in the country. I think we'd like to have him to coach our defense. He was getting phone calls, okay? He was getting phone calls. And so Indiana said, well, we want him to stay, and he's already getting calls and offers to go other places to, quote, bigger schools and bigger programs who were probably throwing a big amount of money to him. So Indiana decided to make this thing happen and make sure he doesn't leave and go anywhere. It's the same thing with Curt Cignetti, right? Did I think that Curt Cignetti was ever truly going to leave? No, I don't think so, right? He could have, sure, but we know how much he loves Indiana. But that's why the Hoosiers extended him when all the Penn State stuff started going down. There was a threat of it happening, so Indiana put that to bed. They did the same thing with Bryant Haines, your DC, and it was a no-brainer move, in my opinion. So it's unbelievable how good he is, and the fact that Indiana said, yeah, you're not leaving. We're going to pay you. And the fact that he wants to be here, too. I think that says a lot about the direction of the program. I think it says a lot about Curt Cignetti and the culture that they've built in Bloomington, right? That says a lot because, folks, he could go anywhere in the country. Bryant Haines could be hired as anybody's defensive coordinator across college football. Like, that's how good he is, but he's not going anywhere. So you save him and get to use him for his on-field abilities, his recruiting abilities, right? His development abilities, and defensive players want to come play for this guy. All I've ever heard is good things about Bryant Haines in terms of his energy and his schemes, right? And all of that. I mean, this dude is legit, and Indiana secured him. He's here for the next 3 years, unless he were to go and take a head coaching job. But at this point, you don't have to worry about that, and he's going to be in Bloomington for quite some time. I will say, though, even though Indiana got this done with Bryant Haines, I'm going to go ahead and tell you it will be nearly impossible, okay? Nearly impossible. No matter what happens from here on out, if Indiana were to lose in the first game of the college football playoff or they go and win the national championship, it will be nearly impossible for Indiana to keep everybody on this staff. Not that they can't afford them and not that Indiana doesn't want them, but Bryant Haines is not the only guy getting phone calls, okay? It's obvious how college football works, and that people are taking notice of what's happening in Indiana, and they want a piece of it. They want some. They want the guys that are a part of that. They want guys that are involved in the greatest season in the history of Indiana football. They want guys who are a part of a Big Ten championship team. They want guys who are making a run at a national championship. That goes for the coaching staff and the players on your roster as well. So it will be nearly impossible to keep everybody on this staff. And the one that I'm looking at is Shanahan as your offensive coordinator. Keep an eye on some position coaches as well. They're getting phone calls too. So can Indiana find a way to keep as many as possible? We're going to have to wait and see. But one big domino that you were able to avoid falling was Bryant Haines, your defensive coordinator. He's in Indiana for at least 3 more seasons, paying him nearly $3 million a year. And good for Indiana for getting this done, because I think it was an absolute no-brainer. All right, coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, we will flip to the hardwood because Man, Saturday night in Lexington just was not a whole lot of fun. And Indiana's got some serious problems. The question is, can they be fixed? We'll talk about that coming up next here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. We saw a lot of shifting yesterday in the NFL. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines as they're adjusting instantly with the game. If you're interested in what's coming up tonight in the NFL, Monday Night Football, you've got the Dolphins on the road at the Steelers. Pittsburgh about a field goal favorite right now, and you can jump on that. You can wait for somebody to score and then start live betting the other team. However you want to do it. Monday Night Football tonight between the Dolphins and the Steelers with our friends at FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you for being here as we are chugging right along through the month of December. The fact that we're 2 weeks away from, oh my goodness, from a new year, from 2026, and then Indiana football will be competing in the college football playoff. It's pretty remarkable how fast time has flown, and the idea that we're now in a full crossover season with football still playing and basketball well underway. And as much fun as football has been, basketball has been just so up and down, right? I mean, you've had so many games that were exciting, right? The opener, the game against Marquette, the game against Milwaukee, where you averaged 100 points in your first 3 games. Those were fun. Then you struggled against a team like Incarnate Word. Then you played fine against Lindenwood. You played pretty good against a Kansas State team. You drop 100 up Bethune-Cookman, and everything was fine. Everything was going well. Indiana was undefeated. Hoosiers are 7-0. We're feeling good. This team is hot. They shoot the ball. They get up and down the floor. Like, we were having fun. And then you hit a little bit of a lull. Then you go on the road to Minnesota, and you look terrible against a bad Minnesota team. You give up a 16-0 run to start the game against Louisville and just couldn't climb your way out of it. You drop 113 points on Penn State, and we think everything is fine. And then you go on the road to Lexington and you blow a 7-point halftime lead and you lose by 12. This team, I want to say the natural feeling is that they're unpredictable, but the problem is they're too predictable. That's the issue with this Indiana team, because we said it coming into the year and we've talked about it through the first couple of games. They're overly reliant on the 3 ball. And the problem is, for a team that likes to shoot the 3, they don't run offensive sets to get them open for 3. That's the issue. Somebody said it on our live show Saturday night after the Kentucky game. They said, for a team that loves to shoot 3s, how are they so bad at spacing the floor? And I think that sums it up perfectly. A team that wants to do nothing but shoot. A team that could not care less if they get a paint touch or not. They do not care. All they want to do is shoot. But the problem is, 4 or 5 of them are always standing outside the 3-point line. It makes it pretty easy for a team to defend you, knowing that you're not going to the lane, knowing that your guards are not going to put it on the floor and try to get to the rack. Lamar Wilkerson will do it every now and then, but he's about it. And the idea that the couple of bigs that you have, right, in Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis, they have no concern, no business, no worry, no want at all, no urgency to play as a big on the offensive end of the floor. And so the question is, can Indiana's problems be fixed on both ends, right? It's not just offensively. It's defensively too. And I think that was the bigger issue. I don't know. They were both pretty bad. But defensively in the second half against Kentucky was not good. And the Cats basically ramped up their defensive pressure to cause Indiana's offense to just absolutely stall. And I don't know. The problem is, I don't know if they can be fixed because, as Charles Barkley said on the TV broadcast Saturday night, this team's not getting any bigger. They are who they are this season. And the idea that you just refuse to spread the floor and you refuse to run sets that allow guys to get open off of backdoor cuts and off-ball screens and just flex cuts and things like that. Like, simple basketball tells you if you get paint touches, the defense has to then respect it. We talk about this all the time with teams who aren't good three-point shooting teams, but are okay, right? For those teams, if they shoot it from the outside enough, the defense has to respect it and come out to guard you, which then opens up the lane. We're talking about the complete opposite for this Indiana basketball team. Defenses are pressured out because they know Indiana doesn't want to go inside, which is ridiculous to think about. That's absurd. It takes a couple dribble drives. It takes a couple of cuts. It takes a couple of paint touches, whether it's Reed Bailey or Sam Alexis at the elbow, low block on that volleyball line and come in and act like you want to score in there. The defense will then have to respect that. You then can kick it out and work your open shots, move the ball around the perimeter when the defense is moving. When the basketball's moving, the defense is moving. And when the defense is moving, that creates holes, that creates breakdowns, and that allows you to get open looks. That's what Indiana needs to do. So I hope that in this game coming up on Saturday against Chicago State and then on Monday against Siena, we're talking a week from now, I hope they just focus on ball movement, because how many times did the ball stick on the same side of the floor against Kentucky and nothing happened? Indiana either turned it over, which they did more times than they have all season against the Cats, or somebody just took a horribly bad shot and then we ran down the other end and played, poor defense, right? I don't know if Indiana's offensive problems can be fixed. I think they can, but Indiana's got to want it. And then defensively, as we wrap up here, defensively, it can absolutely be fixed. Good defense is about two things. It's about communication and it's about effort. Anybody can play good defense. Anybody, any player, any team, any program, anybody can play good defense as long as you communicate properly and you give effort, because that's what it takes. It takes you moving your feet rather than swiping your arms. It takes you running back down the floor full sprint rather than jogging and hoping that somebody else picks up the basketball. It's about communicating on switches or not switching, or picking up a cutter or watching plays and knowing film and talking about that to your team. That's all it takes. And I think Indiana can get there. And I think Darren DeVries will put that into his guys, because I think we said this, I can't remember after what game it was, but man, if you get stops on the defensive end, you will find shots on the offensive end. The basketball gods will repay you. But if you play lazy defensively, you're not going to play good offensively. You're not locked in mentally if you don't care on one end and try to care on the other. That's just not how it works. And I think Indiana's got to find a way to do that. It starts with the guards, then to your bigs, and everybody in between. Can the problems be fixed for Indiana basketball? Yes, they can. The problem is I just don't know if they will. And if they don't, conference play is going to be very, very humbling for this squad. Good news is you've got 2 more games against mediocre opponents to try to figure it out, try to start feeling good about yourself before you hit the heart of Big Ten play. And so if it gets fixed, I think Indiana can be a competitive team. If not, you may end up missing the NCAA tournament, and that will make our fans very, very unhappy. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You are following us on your audio podcasting platforms. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments. And again, if you want to check out our Everydayer Club, we'd love for you to be a part of it. Okay, you get the show ad-free, plus access to our members-only Discord, and so much more. It's $5 a month or $50 for the year. LockedOnHoosiers.supercast.com is the way to find it. We'll also have it down in the show description below. Okay, more basketball and football content this week. If we hear of some more portal news, which I think we will, we'll talk about that, plus what Indiana can do in this downtime to prepare for either Alabama or Oklahoma in the college football playoff. We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.